There are theories, as you might imagine, about why exactly George Lucas has joined those who seem to have destroyed the very franchises that he loved. Now, we're not here to dismiss those other theories, but there is one in particular which may exist and which may explain why he did what he did, as well as not be in contradiction with those that others are espousing. What are we talking about? Well, folks, we've got a pretty good idea of why George Lucas decided to back Bob Iger, and we'll explain it to you right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we, as always, are here to explain entertainment in a way you may not find anywhere else. Today, we're talking about the idea, the theory of a legacy swap. And was there a swapping of favors when George Lucas put out a statement backing the magic and calling people like Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo amateurs? Let's dive into the theory right now. Take a look at the chyron below. George Lucas joins the white blank, the legacy swap theory. All right, here we have it. Let's read the statement now out of George Lucas, coming out about 2 to 3 hours ago. And note, folks, that George Lucas was probably snoozing in bed on the West Coast. This thing came out very early. It was released to a massive number of publications in the hope that it would get the most visibility possible. And this is not typical George Lucas behavior. He doesn't normally weigh in on financial stuff. In fact, we've never seen him do this before. So all of those things taken into consideration, as well as the fact that the Acolyte trailer was due to debut and did just hours after this statement. Therefore, the George Lucas statement clearly took the wind out of the sails of the Acolyte trailer by making George the news of the day, not Leslie Headland. All of this needs to be taken into account as we get into the statement. Here it is. Creating magic is not for amateurs. When I sold Lucasfilm just over a decade ago, I was delighted to become a Disney shareholder because of my long-time admiration for its iconic brand and Bob Iger's leadership. Now, one thing that would be funny to do here, folks, would be to run all the images where we have had George Lucas shaking hands or in the presence of Bob Iger, and George Lucas always looks like he needs Pepto-Bismol. Just saying. When Bob recently returned to the company during a difficult time, I was relieved. No one knows Disney better. Now, here too is another statement that lines up exactly with Disney talking points. We've already seen magic, a word that is probably not in the typical parlance of George Lucas, probably not his normal vernacular. Now he's saying that there's no one who knows Disney better. Why is that important? Because Disney has been trying to say that Nelson Peltz has no media experience and Jay Rasulo is an analog individual. Okay? These are Disney talking points. I remain a significant shareholder because I have full faith and confidence in the power of Disney and Bob's track record of driving long-term value. This in spite of George losing something like 45% of his stock value over the last 2 years. I have voted all of my shares for Disney's 12 directors and urge other shareholders to do the same. So that's the statement out there. Let's compare that now, folks. Let's go to Variety back from 2015 and see how this stacks up. George Lucas says he sold Star Wars to white bad peoples by Jacob Bryant. Yeah, we go to the Wayback Machine because we know how to go way back and find out what people really think. Here it is in a moment of absolute truth-telling. While Disney has to be pleased with the way its $4 billion acquisition of Lucasfilm is turning out thanks to the galactic success of Star Wars The Force Awakens, the man who created the Star Wars universe doesn't feel the same way. In an interview with Charlie Rose, George Lucas spoke about everything from his and Disney's branching vision to the deal itself. Turns out George might have been right. Lucas, who has always been protective of his series and even refers to them as his kids, hasn't been looking back well on the deal with Disney. I sold them to the white blankers. And that takes these things, and Lucas said before laughing and decided it better not finish. Now, not only that, but later, after this article came out, folks, there was seemingly a legal threat that had George Lucas forced to reverse position. So how much do we really think that George Lucas thinks of Bob Iger? I mean, come on. So I want to present a theory to you, and then we'll turn to Mr. Ghost to give us his analysis. But here's my theory. This is the legacy swap theory. And it is this. Bob Iger is at the precipice of a major legacy destruction. And in order to secure his legacy, he needs to get not only this vote, but potentially the vote of next year. Because Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo may stick around for another 12 months. He needs to get through this vote, though, or else that legacy is in real trouble. George Lucas has already had his legacy severely damaged. And you might say, well, no, not really. He's divorced from Lucasfilm. He's divorced from what happened after he sold it. But they kind of killed Star Wars. They kind of killed Indiana Jones. They kind of killed Willow. They kind of killed everything that was important and close to George Lucas. ILM notwithstanding yet. But the issue might be here with a legacy swap is Bob Iger could have said to George, listen, I will do whatever it takes to send Star Wars in the direction that you want. And in exchange, you will put out a statement with your name on it that our team puts together. Now, I don't know that that's what happened. This is speculation. But in the world of theory, I think this is a credible theory, this legacy swap theory, because and there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, George Lucas does not need money. He doesn't need any money. So there's no money, I think, passing, by under a table on this. George Lucas also doesn't need to weigh in on any of this financial stuff. I don't think he cares about it. He's never weighed in on financial stuff in the past. I also don't think that George Lucas speaks the way that we read in this. But I do think that George Lucas cares about his kids. And I'm not talking about just his biological children. I'm talking about the franchises that he based his life on. And I don't think he wants to pass away knowing that they're in the hands of Leslie Headland. Who in the world wants their kids babysat by Leslie Headland? We'll get into the atrocious trailer momentarily. But I think this was a legacy swap. You save my legacy, I'll do what you want to save yours, whether I agree with it or not. Will we ever find out what that legacy swap entailed? I don't know. But if Kathleen Kennedy goes away anytime in the next 12 months, it's going to draw serious questions as to what was agreed upon, even if we will never, ever, ever know. Because just like how the sausage is made is often never released or revealed to the public, how the magic is made also is not. All right, Mr. Ghost, it's your turn. Take a swing at this thing. You sent in a tremendous analysis about 30, 45 minutes ago. What do you have, sir?
Well, I'll just go through what I wrote. I said, first, it shows how desperate Iger and company are and how their vote counters are telling them this is going to be much closer than they ever hoped or feared. So there's that. Secondly, as you said, George and Elon are both in the same bribe me with money, go fund yourself position, and he couldn't be bought. There's no buying him. This whole idea of somebody said something about him embracing the posterior of his paymaster. He could care less. So everything in this statement talks about Star Wars, not a word about Indy. I think Indy and the way they've destroyed it is even the bridge too far that George wouldn't go. If indeed George and Bob talked, which definitely happened, and if indeed Bob said, we'll write a statement and it'll be okay and you'll like it, George had to say, don't even mention Indy because of what he did. He had to. And remember that the other partner in Indy is this guy named Spielberg who has ties to Universal, so he can't do anything about this. And you had to know that, look, I'm happily married and to only one person. But I know how people get into love-hate with their exes. But George must have just laughed and scoffed at that whole, it's time for a female to be in charge of Star Wars, because Marcia Lucas was in charge of a lot of it since day one. Next, the multitude of Star Wars stuff for Disney Plus and the rest is in the can. He cannot influence it. Whether he can even influence the Mandalorian and Grogu stuff that they're working on now, I don't know. But the idea that his influence would happen at all would have to be over whatever comes after that. And let's face it, if all of that fails, there won't be any after that. I also thought about something else. Does anybody out there know what studio distributed the original Star Wars?
Would that be Fox?
20th Century Fox?
Fox?
It would be. So what if his relationship with them got so cozy back then, which it obviously didn't, that he would have stuck with them? And what if the first piece of anything Star Wars Disney got would have been when they finally bought Fox recently. Wouldn't that be an interesting megaverse to be involved with? It is clear to me that this statement was written entirely by Disney. That Amateurs line has all the smarminess as the rest of their stuff.
Right. That
And
would
as
be
I
the
said,
meanest thing that George Lucas has said in a long time, other than
and
what he said
I've-
about Disney.
the
That's
stuff
1,000% correct.
about being worried about so relieved when he came back. That's the dig at it's all Chapek's fault, and the whole thing about you already pointed out the knock on Rasulo in particular involved in this statement. But let's think about who else they could get. First of all, clearly the Disney kids weren't enough. They put them out there in spite of some of the things some of them have said about the company over the years. And they thought, boy, this will convince everybody. And there are a number of people came back and said, no, we need something else. So who else could they go to? They couldn't go to Lasseter. They couldn't go to Steve Jobs. He's dead. And obviously, if they approached Rupert Murdoch, another person they bought something big from, he told them to go fund themselves too. So they have to be thinking, oh boy, the true fans, if we mention George Lucas, will come running to vote for us. But I got to tell you, in my reading, after all the bad stuff they've put out in the name of Star Wars, I can see a true fan and a true lover and of the opus. I hate that canon. I can see them saying, I respect Lucas for what he started, but God, amateurs, who did he think those people who ruined his work have been? And the timing. And I got to tell you one other thing that's on the downside for George that maybe he was willing to bear because he just doesn't give a damn. If Iger loses, either this time or next time, or wins by just a bare hair, George is now tied at the hip to that humiliation that Iger was.
Yep.
And I guess he just doesn't care. We shall see.
Well, let me ask you guys this then. So let's go to the vote results. It's this seems to me to be the sort of thing that a presidential campaign would do in an election year on November 1st, when you think that there's a real good shot you're going to lose. You need an endorsement. Bob Iger needed an endorsement. There's no reason for George to get involved in this whatsoever. Like, let's strip away all of the motivations, reasons he might be involved in this. Strip out whether or not Disney crafted the statement, which I think is just it's just so clear. But strip all that away. All that away. Here's what I think is also worthy of news. Worthy of our time is the idea that perhaps Disney has caught wind from whoever is tabulating the votes that, hey, this is way closer than what it should be or what we anticipated.
Yeah.
Frankly, what I on this panel have anticipated, because I have been very clear, I don't think that Nelson Peltz is going to win this year. I think next year, if he chooses to stick around, he could cash out, by the way. But if he doesn't cash out, he has a very good chance of taking the board with more than 2 seats. But they may have looked at this. Disney may be looking at the internals here, and there may be a much bigger story hidden underneath this headline that is, they've got a shot at losing those board seats, and they've got to pull in somebody like George Lucas to try to stop this. Nolan, what do you think about all this?
There is a part of this article that we have not highlighted a bunch, and I really want to spin the question back around because I would really love to know you guys' thoughts on this. A keynote I noticed in this was George Lucas saying how either relieved or happy he was that Bob Iger came back to the company. My God, why does everyone hate Bob Chapek? That guy was gone in a blink of an eye. And what would Lucas have to do with Bob Chapek?
Right, and George Lucas had the highest stock value he'd ever seen under Bob Chapek. That's a great question, Nolan.
Yes.
The word is scapegoat.
I don't understand
the word is scapegoat. That's
right.
All.
Scapegoat, and I think that's what gives the credibility to the idea that this was written by Disney.
Yeah. Agreed. This
why
sounds
would
like
George care
something
about
Bob
Bob
Iger wrote up or his team.
George doesn't know or care about Bob Chapek. Why would he care?
Yeah, I just have to say, this sounds exactly like I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets in everything. You can obviously tell that the same pen that wrote that on a yellow legal pad back in the Lucasfilm offices is the same one that is here to say creating magic is not for amateurs. That line just reeks of, first of all, it's very mean-spirited, and it reeks of corporate doublespeak here. This is not,
This doesn't align
that is
with-
way too close to the party line. And Lucasfilm is not about magic. Lucasfilm is a legendary company, but that's not their tagline. If he's worried about preserving Lucasfilm and the legacy of Lucasfilm, he is not using the word magic to talk about that. Even though Industrial Light and Magic, I obviously get that that's part of the name there. This is
over the years, I have never seen. Sorry to interrupt, Jonas. Over the years, I have never seen George Lucas in any interview talk like a politician. In fact, he's had comments about him before about how he can, like, of course, we all know the famous Harrison Ford comment, whether you agree with it or not, how basically he said, like, you know how to write it, but you don't know how to say it. And George Lucas has never spoken like a politician over the years, whereas Bob Iger, he knows how to talk to people and to spin the conversation a certain way. George Lucas couldn't ever do like politics or anything like that because he's too
he'd be
blunt,
awful
he's too
at
biased,
politics.
he's not. No, yeah, exactly. He's not good at lying.
I don't even think it's about his ability. He could have learned how and done it if he wanted to. I think it's because for so many years he dealt with studio executives from the outside and got sick of it. And I also have to remind you who his patron saint and tutor was in this business, Francis Coppola, who certainly dealt with studio people like crazy and gave George the benefit of all the lessons he learned. So,
great point, Lou.
You know,
yeah, well, and of
the
course,
other thing, somebody in the chat said something about he never should have sold it to Disney. Well, he did. And you have to presume, as far as his ongoing relationship with Iger, that he must have had a good relationship with Iger on the whole Star Tours thing, because obviously he was happy with how they handled his material there. So what happened in between? Well, we know they made a lot of junk.
Well, they tossed his stuff away. Yeah.
Famous abdicator of the studio system. He hates the studio system. He's big on going, well, why would we do it your way? I would rather do it my way. So for him to come in and say that this is this is advantageous to make sure that the largest, most bloated corporation in entertainment right now needs to be the guys in charge of Star Wars. This just reeks of insincerity to me. I don't believe that he did this. I'm just going to say it. I don't believe that he did this. And if he did do this, I don't think he is of the same mind as the guy who created Star Wars.
I can't understand this at all. I mean, I look at what Iger did to him with the whole misleading him with the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy story treatments that he had. I look at the declining numbers. I mean, I was talking with a friend of mine. He was like, George may actually hate Star Wars. He may actually want to see it like go down in flames. They've completely destroyed. When he came out with that statement that he sold his children to white slavers, and to see the treatment they've done to it, and now you've got an actual opportunity for somebody to make a change and put it back into a direction where they like it. Because I mean, I don't know what he sees in Filoni. I'm not a fan. I don't think that he's going to be someone who could lead this to more of a Lucas-oriented direction. But they've absolutely destroyed Indiana Jones. I mean, the only thing he's got left is Red Tails, and like I hope she doesn't think that she's going to do that.
Does he still have did American Graffiti go with the Lucasfilm sale? Or no?
I think Fox. Well, wait, who did American?
I'm trying to think what she might try to get her claws on before this is all over.
I don't think. Well, was American Graffiti Lucasfilm, or was that just?
No, it was before Lucasfilm. It was.
Right, but I didn't know if he pulled that into Lucasfilm later on once he had.
Oh.
No, it's a separate deal, I think.
But after Paramount stole it for Happy Days, there wasn't much left.
Oh me! Well, that gets us into the Fonz.
We're
so glad that you're here.
Eisner was there, wasn't it? Ooh, complications.
And folks, we have come to the end of the theory for the day, but one theory that remains true always is that you are the gigawatts that drive all of this. We are so appreciative of each and every one of you. And unlike George Lucas and whoever else might be behind this, we intend to never betray you, nor your hope that we will continue to deliver on the promises of this channel each and every day. Folks, like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and weigh in. Who's right? Who's wrong? Why did it happen? And how do you feel about it? This is a place for that kind of conversation. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.